Hey everyone, well, welcome to today's Q&A. Now, here's the deal. I want you to think of your absolute most difficult, toughest real estate challenges and hit me with it. You know, I used to do a $100 challenge a lot when I spoke in small groups, and that was when we could do the Q&As, and that was, I dare you. I challenge you to come up with a question I can't answer, and I have these $100 bills, and if I can't answer it, like totally nail it, then I'm going to give you $100. So today we're doing the $100 challenge. So if you can hit me with a question that we'll say reasonably I can't nail, then we're going to PayPal you $100. I didn't tell you about that, Adam, did I?
You didn't.
No, I know, and Adam's here with me. So let me just give you 2 minutes about me for those of you who don't know. I grew up in the real estate business. My dad was a realtor in Cincinnati. He started teaching me real estate when I was like 12 years old. And I remember one of the first things he taught me was the definition of real estate. And I was like, I had to memorize this stuff word for word, everything about real estate, success strategy, et cetera. And like the definition of real estate, you know, it was real estate is real property plus the title there too. That is real property capable of being sold. What is real property? Real property is the land, what's beneath it, what's attached there to, erected thereon, the right of light and air above. In that order, word for word. What's beneath it, of course, we know mineral rights, the land itself, what's erected under buildings, what's attached there to are what? Shrubs, and the right of light and air above. My point is, since I was like a kid, real estate has truly been injected into my brain and my blood. And so I was fortunate, got out of law school, passed bar exam, became an attorney, but I had had so much fun in real estate. I'd sold a little bit part-time in the summers, had a lot of success, that instead of practicing law, I decided to go into real estate. And so, you know, the Cliff Notes version is using the kind of strategies, and that's the cool thing here. Not using, you know, I was a Dale Carnegie instructor, I studied selling and all these selling techniques, and it's really good, and it helped me. But that was not the key. The key to me, number one, becoming the #1 salesperson in my state in 24 months, to building a real estate firm through training agents to 121 offices, 4,000 agents, to being ranked #1 in the luxury home market in the entire Southwest, to building the #1 luxury home company, Christie's company, in the entire Southwest, to doing what I do today, having all that success, making all that money in real estate. What's so interesting is it wasn't because I'm such a good salesperson. I think I'm an okay salesperson, but you know, I'm enthusiastic. I love what I do, and I was always enthusiastic, and I think that was contagious. But it was using specific strategies, specific processes that I developed that totally opened the door to my success. And that's what I teach. That's really where my coaching, I think, differs. I know differs from what is taught by other coaches. And that is, I have certain processes that aren't processes for you selling. You can just explain them. Like, for example, to list property. I have a process where you can just show home sellers your home selling strategy. Here's what it is. And they'll want to list with you even if they don't like you, simply because they'll look at this and realize that this so dramatically increases the probability their home will sell faster and at a higher price. No guarantees, but it will increase the probability. So that's the whole point. The whole point is that I teach these processes and strategies that take the burden off of you having to sell yourself, and enable the seller to see that what you do to sell their home is so much more powerful than the traditional things other agents are doing, that they would realize if they listed with anyone else, they would be leaving money on the table. And that's really the key. So that being said, today's Q&A, it's not for me to get up here and, you know, talk about, you know, what I've done or the strategy specifically I've used. So what we're going to do is you can text in, email in, you know, just, well, what are the instructions? They have to do what in order to ask questions here, Adam? And
so in order to ask questions, you have to be registered on Google+, which you can do at the top of your screen. It'll say register for Google+. Click on that red button.
Register for Google+.
That's it. And they're also going to need to click the Q&A button on their screen, a little yellow Q&A button.
And that's up in the top,
that's on the upper left-hand corner, yeah, or on the top, depending upon what browser you're
using. Upper left-hand corner, just click the Q&A, and then on the right-hand side, you'll see this little thing come up where you can ask questions, and just type them in, and Adam's going to relay them to me so I can do the answers and not have to watch the screen. And anything you want to ask, I'm going to answer.
That's it. Nothing's off the table. And if anybody has any questions and they can't figure out the Q&A function, email your questions to help@realestatemaverics.com right now, and we'll get those asked as well.
And also, do we have Yolanda on? Is she on the phone where they could even call if they needed to?
She's available on the phone. Yeah.
So 480-998-9900, 480-998-9900. If you're having difficulties, you can email help@realestatemaverics.com or just make a call. We want to make sure that if you have questions, you can get those answered today. So
we've got questions.
We have questions. Okay, so let's get her started.
Okay, first question from Ani Abbas. I think I recognize.
Ani. Hey, Ani. Ani's in my coaching. Ani and Chantel are fantastic. They're like the total coolest. So, all right, guys, here's the deal. You hit me with something tough. I don't want any softballs. What's the question?
The question is, hi, Greg. What are some objections?
Hi, Greg. I can deal with hi, Greg.
That's too easy. Yeah. Hi, Greg. What are some objections handlers over the What are some objection handlers over the phone when calling expireds on the 29-day plan and the 990 with FSBOs?
Okay, so.
And then the second part of that question is, what are some rebuttals that sellers may say over the phone?
Perfect. Okay, so let's start with the calling expireds. Okay, so let's start with calling expireds. And my talk track for expireds, and Ani and you and Chantel know it because you're on Voxer with me, and you've gone through my 3-part Voxer in terms of how to call expired. So my belief in calling expireds is, first of all, one of the things you learn in speaking is to pick up with people where they are. And let me give you an example. When you get up in front of a room and you're doing a presentation, if the person before you has people's heads in a certain place, like they've told this moving story, and maybe it's about something that just ripped their heart out, and you're a motivational speaker, and you're going to come out there, you're all charged and ready to go, those people are not in your place. And so you have to adjust what you say to start your presentation to take those people from where they are to where you're going to get started. Well, I view calling expireds exactly the same way. You have to think of where they are. They probably just had their home on the market for 6 months, typical listing term. They've been disappointed. Their home hasn't sold, so you know they've been disappointed. They may or may not think highly of their agent. They may just think their agent tried hard, but it didn't happen. They may just think their agent didn't do the things they should have done. But the bottom line is their home didn't sell. And probably they've been told what? That the reason it didn't sell is because it was priced too high. And that's disappointing to them because everybody likes to feel they're going to get what they thought they'd get when they started the listing. So with that in mind, Ani, the way I approach buy owners is I call them to help them rather than calling them to say, hey, I'm another agent. I believe I can do a better job. Please, let me come over and talk to you about listing your home. I simply start off my talk track, and then we'll handle some objections like this. I say, my name's Greg Hague, and I know that you've had your home on the market for 6 months, and it appears like it's no longer on the market. Are you still interested in selling? And they'll say yes or no. Generally, yes, and then they'll say something like, yeah, but we've been pounded by calls from other agents. And sometimes I'll just bring that up and say, and I know you've been pounded. You've probably gotten a lot of calls from agents who want to list your home. That's not why I'm calling. I am not calling right now because I want to list your home. And that's truthful. You're not. So you want to say that because that sets you apart from other agents. So let's start there. Number 2, I say the reason I'm calling is because I would like to help you understand why your home didn't sell, having nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me listing your home. I, quite frankly, have made a study in home selling strategy. I've made a study in the mistakes that are made in selling homes. And one thing I've learned is that most of the homes that expire, most of the homes that don't sell in a 6-month period, they don't sell for specific reasons, specific solvable reasons, things that could have been done differently. And a lot of times, it's not what people think. It's not what the home seller thinks. It's not even what the agent thinks. It's not the price. Everybody's always focused on this price. If a home doesn't sell, it's always about the price. That is not the case. One of the things that I think agents and home sellers make a big mistake on is saying, well, this home is worth a certain amount of money. There's no home worth a certain amount of money. Homes are worth a range of value. The comps don't set the value of a home. The comps just set a range of value. And so I say to the home seller, and the idea is, and understand this, Ani, and we've talked about this because I know you're in my coaching. I know you've heard it on Boxer. Sellers may think they hire us to sell their home, but they don't. Sellers do not hire us to sell their home. Sellers hire us to get the maximum dollar for their home. Anybody can sell their home. Realtors need to get that. They need to understand that a seller who prices their home low enough, the home's going to sell to one of the first buyers who comes through. And a home seller could hire an attorney for a couple grand, not 6%, to protect them, negotiate it, and get it closed. So here's my point. And now we get back to the expired. Getting back to the expired, my point is to understand and explain to the expired quickly on the phone that what I'd like to do is just spend 15 minutes with you, ask you 6 questions. And I teach you, as you know, Ani, I've given you the 6 questions. Come over. I'd like to ask you 6 questions. I'm going to leave. I'm never going to even suggest you list with me. And the next day I'm going to send you an email. And in that email, I'm going to lay out the reasons that I believe your home didn't sell. If price is one, I'm going to tell you that price is one. But the reasons your home didn't sell and what you can do to solve that, whether you sell by owner, list with me, or list with someone else. And with that talk track, I've tried a number of talk tracks over the years. That works hands down. So then the objections that you might often get from an expired would be, well, I'm not sure, and how do I know you're real, and all that kind of thing. And the bottom line is, there's anything anybody brings up on the phone, all I say to them is, with that talk track, it's 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes, and it might open a whole world of possibility for you in terms of how you can go about and get your home sold, maybe at the price you thought you could 6 months ago. Now, going to the buy owner, the buy owner thing is, I love that. This is such a no-brainer to hit buy owners. And that is, I use our 990 opportunity. So I would call a buy owner and simply say to a buy owner, did you happen to know that there's a way that you can have your cake and eat it too? That is, that you can have the best of both worlds. And a buy owner say, what are you talking about? And say, well, you probably have realtors ever since you went buy owner trying to come over and list your home. That is, stop you from being a buy owner. Stop you from being a buy owner and instead list with them. Well, Ani, what I do is, as you know, because you've heard my talk track, is I say to the buy owner over the phone, I have the best of both worlds for you. How would you like to have every realtor in town working on selling your home, have the benefit of marketing, advertising, the benefit of MLS when the time's appropriate, and still be able to sell your home yourself and not pay a nickel if you find the buyer? Did you know that such an alternative exists? And most every buy owner will say no. So you say, may I come over and explain? In which case you do, and what you point out to them is this. You say, so here's the deal. Here's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to go ahead, and I'm willing to, if you sign my marketing agreement, I'm willing to go ahead, market your home at the right time, put it in MLS, run my 22-step, 29-day process on it, my pre-marketing process, do everything you'd expect from a full-service realtor. At the same time, you can hold your home open whenever you like. You can hold it open whenever you like, just like you're doing now. And if you find your own buyer who's not with a realtor, you find your own buyer who's not with a realtor, you can do the transaction and owe me nothing. Put that right in my listing contract. Or alternative number 2, if you find a buyer who's not working with a realtor and you want my help, I'll close this thing and you just name a commission for $990, some amount of money. I will close the transaction for this amount of money for you. And then number 3, if any realtor comes through, any realtor show it, I show it, whatever, you would pay the normal commission. So you have basically the best of both worlds. And one last thing with respect to, I've just never found buy owners that have any objection to that. How can they have an objection to that? Or they have it all. And the only thing you have to ask them to do is take their yard sign down that says buy owner. You don't put your yard sign up. You just take your yard sign down that says buy owner, because you can't have other realtors coming over with buyers. They will see that yard sign. They won't want to show the home. So that actually hurts that buy owner. So I hope that helps you. Okay, what do we got now?
All right. So just in tandem with
was
this,
I too long-winded there?
I'm giving him the wrap it up signal over here, guys, just so you can see.
All right. Sorry, I just get going.
You get going. Rapid fire questions. Okay, so I've got tons of emails coming in. I got tons of questions on here. So I'm going to ask not in the order they came. So forgive me, guys. I'm going to ask in the order of relevancy. Okay. So Larry Rubino just says, good morning.
Hey, Larry. How are you? Great to see you.
If you can't get in touch with a for sale by owner by phone and I have their email, what would you send them in an email?
Well, quite frankly, I would, number 1, I would go over. I just go over and knock on the door. In fact, Larry, I have these cards. So I would go right over instead of the email. Because emails, I mean, emails are emails, you know, whatever. I mean, you got a buy owner, they're in your area. So let's kind of presume, Larry, that they are in your area. Why not just go over? Why not just knock on the door? Why not say to them, so I'm going to give you alternative 1 and alternative 2, but both involve going over and not sending an email. Just go over, knock on the door and say, just what I said. Did you happen to know that there's a way that you can sell your home yourself and at the same time have the entire real estate community working to sell your home too? It's like the buy owner's dream. May I have 10 minutes to explain it to you? I'll tell you, you go out and do that, and you're going to find just with that talk track just there, you're going to get in the door more than half the time right then. And once you explain what you've got, you're going to get those listings. Now, the talk track, the second thing is, what if they're not home? Well, have you seen my bet you $1 cards? So I have these cards, bet you $1 I can sell your home before you do. And it's really cool. I developed these like 25, 30 years ago. You just leave them. If you don't want to go in, you leave them under the mat, and you actually put a real dollar. So it says, I bet you A, and then you put a real dollar in the slot. I'll bet you A, and then there's a dollar bill there. I can sell your home before you do. And then you have your phone number. And that evokes their curiosity, and really having the dollar in there. I mean, put $10 in there if you want to. And the funny story with respect to that, I got to tell you, sorry, Adam, just 1 minute.
No, you're good. I'm just thinking about the fact that if I had a dollar bill slide under my door when I get home, I'd probably go knock on all the other neighbors' doors to see if I could get that dollar from them.
Well, remember, I'm only doing this with my owners.
Right, that's true. You're not farming. Okay,
right,
good. Yeah.
Okay. So, but in today's world, I'd probably put a 10 there.
Right.
You know, I bet you $10 I can sell your home. I might even really go all out and put like $100. Whatever, you know, come on.
All right.
What we make on that, I mean, $100 I can bet you home before you do. And then if I don't get a call from them, if they don't call me, I'm going back over there and saying I want my $100 back. Seriously. You got my $100.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it.
Okay, so then I do the same thing, Larry. So I leave that, and what I used to do is carry these things with me. And whenever I'd see a buy owner sign, whenever I was driving, I already had it in my glove compartment of my car. I wouldn't go knock on the door. I just quickly shove it under the thing. Well, the funny story is the first one I ever handed out was, I saw this, I developed this thing. It's so cool. I was so excited, ready to do it. I had these $1 bills on it. And there was this buy owner sign, so I put it under the mat. Like that night, I get a call. The guy's name is Russ Mason. Today, this is like 30 years ago. He's a dear friend of mine today. So this guy calls me. He's like, turns out he's mine. He says, Craig Hague, I saw this thing under my door. You left me this dollar. You come over and get this right now. And he says, I'm buy owner, this and that. I work for my dad as a builder, and we do not need any realtors. We know how to sell our homes. You come over and get this dollar. You know, he was just all ticked off. Well, I turned to Roseanne. I'm there at home. I said, this is great. So I go over there, and I go to the door, and right away, he's somewhat apologetic. Russ is. I don't know him now, of course, at all. He said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be so cranky on the phone, but I just got realtors constantly pounding on me, and the last thing I need is just leaving money. You know, I feel like this obligation. And I said, well, I'm really sorry, et cetera. I said, you know, then I said, but did you know? And I said, and so he invited me in. Well, here's the bottom line. Like 2 weeks later or so, we talked, got to know each other. A couple weeks later, I list his home. Then I list all of his dad's subdivisions all over town. And then Russ becomes his own builder, goes out on his own. And over the last 30 years, I probably sold, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, $50 million in homes for Russ Mason, Catalina Custom Homes. And that was all, Adam and Larry, from $1 under the mat. So, and the power of what you can do.
Seems like a solid return on investment.
I would say it was a solid return. But again, Larry, the point there, think of all these things I'm talking about. These are just processes. I had this process where Russ, at the same time I was marketing his home, could also, he had to take his yard sign down, but could put an open sign out, not by owner, just an open sign out whenever he wanted. And so that process, I wasn't in there saying, please, Russ, listen with me. I'm better than all the other realtors. I just crafted a process that met his needs, the buy owner's needs, and at the same time gave me an opportunity to sell his home. And as you know, if he finds his own buyer and I step in and help him out, help him get it done, and he pays me a little bit of $9.90 or some such, whatever amount you set, so what that I don't make a lot of money? I make a friend. I've got somebody who's going to refer me. I get a transaction done. it's all good. It's just all good. And in that case, turned into millions. So,
good. Awesome. That was good.
Hey, thanks for the question, Larry.
Okay, so we've got Amy Starr, and her question, I'm going to read it verbatim, and you see if you can decipher exactly what she's saying. She probably was texting this one in. How do vet agents send referrals to that are outside of your area? So how do vet agents send referrals to that are outside of your area? I don't know who they would be.
So how do veteran,
Right.
I would presume, you know, these are not agents who are also vets, like that.
I would assume so.
That take care of animals, right?
And
Okay.
right, yeah,
Veterinary
agents. Right? No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
These are agents who are veteran agents.
Right.
Send referrals outside their area. Well, I don't really get that. I mean, as you know, I'll just run over this. I mean, first of all, I am a believer that you concentrate on dominating your listing market. So let's start there. That you have an area, and I mean, it's kind of a funny example, but I think certain animals kind of cordon off areas that are theirs, in the forest, in the woods. I mean, this is theirs. They own that. Well, I viewed my territory as mine. It pained me, Amy, just boom, pain in the heart, if I would ever see a sign go up where in my territory where I didn't have the opportunity to go in and at least convince the sellers that they ought to be listing with me. So then to get to your question, I would all the time, whether it was, I referred every buyer out. I never worked buyers. I was totally focused on sellers, referred every buyer out, had buyer partners, but even sellers in other areas, I would not take listings that were way remote from where I was. So your question is, how do you do it? Well, I always knew agents in my area and other parts of town. And if I didn't know other agents in other parts of the country, the typical thing is just get a hold of one. First, have them sign a referral agreement, something that they agree to pay you maybe 25, 30% of their commission. The client's name is in there. And then you go ahead and facilitate the referral, and you make sure this agent is a top quality agent. And then you recommend that agent to your referral, and you recommend that person, that agent to the person you're dealing with, and do it. So Adam, Amy, if that didn't answer, because that's just kind of, pretty basic. I mean, don't mean to say basic, but how to do that. If there's something I'm missing there, shoot back in and I'll answer it.
Yeah,
okay?
Submit another question, Amy, if you feel like that didn't answer it all.
If I didn't answer it, and I'm sorry, just shoot me something else.
Okay, so I've got a good email that came in from Dina Schultz. And
Hi, Dina. How are you?
Yep. And she says, I've been talking to a seller for a while about selling. They want to sell and tell me I cannot see the house until they complete these projects, little home projects, whatever they are.
Right.
I say, I've seen everything, really. I've seen all types of homes in all conditions, no judgment. I just want to meet you and see if I can provide you with some valuable input as to how to prepare the home for sale. They still won't let me in. Then I receive an email from them telling me that they went with another agent. How could I have handled this differently?
Yeah. Well, great question. So always, I learned something early on in real estate, and this is Dina, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Dina, I learned something early on in real estate. When I first got my first call-in listing, I was working for my dad's company, and we had a thing called floor time back then. Most companies don't have that now, but that was a few-hour shift where agents would man the phone, and all the calls that came in, that was theirs, even if those were calls off of other agents' listings or whatever, and those were all mine and those buyers. And it was the same with, of course, seller calls. So I was on floor time at my dad's company, and I don't know, like 20 years old, 21 years old, whatever. And I get this call-in listing. And I mean, by call-in listing, and call in and say we want to list, they call in, hey, we'd like to interview someone from your firm to think about selling our home along with other firms. So like, I am so excited. This is like their call-in listing. So I made the appointment for the next night, and I called my dad. I said, Dad, so cool, got my first call-in listing. He said, when's the appointment? And I said, well, it's tomorrow night. And he just raked me, Dina. He raked me. He said, well, you just don't understand when time's on your side and when it's not. And he said, every minute from the time that person agrees to meet with you until the time you meet with them, only bad thing can happen. Time is working against you. Time is not on your side. And obviously, this is an example of that. And so he said, whenever you have the opportunity to go over and talk to people, you want to do it right away. Well, obviously, Dean, I'm not teaching you anything you didn't know, because you were trying to do that. Get over there, and then you ended up losing the listing. So here's what I would have done differently. And number one, you did the right thing. So there's no criticism. I mean, you did totally the right thing. And you were really giving them good advice. For gosh sake, let you come over and give them guidance on how to spend money properly on their home. So whatever they spend to fix it up and make it the way it should be, they're going to get a return on their investment. Because, you know, their home, as you know, once someone decides to sell, a home should no longer be an emotional thing. It's all about the money. It's just ROI. And a lot of sellers don't understand that. They still are emotionally wedded to their home. So what I would have tried to do is come up with, and I'll give you a couple of examples, something that was time sensitive, that if you were unable to come over and talk to them at this specific time, that it was going to, and see their home, that and maybe even get their home out on the market, that could cost them. So some examples might be that you're having some special promotion in your company where a certain number of homes in a certain area are being marketed in a certain way that is 10x bigger and better than any other. And please let me come over, you know, and talk to you about that, because that ends on a certain date, you know, and you just set this date that as of this date, this is no longer available. So the idea is to come up with something, to brainstorm something, and that's what I would have been doing, that's legitimate, that I'm really going to do, not a gimmick, something that I'm really going to do, something I can really get my friends in real estate to do, something that gives them a compelling reason. Here's the bottom line, a compelling reason to see you that day. The other thing I think I would have done, and I can't answer the question, I can't be sure of this without having had the conversations with them, but I think I would have just gone over to the house and said I was in the neighborhood or I was a few doors down. And I mean, arranged to do that. Again, I do not believe in lying. So you arrange some reason to be in the neighborhood that is legitimate, and then you just stop by and you drop them something off. You're not stopping by, and this is the important thing. You're not stopping by to say, hey, will you please let me in? You're dropping by to give them some things that might help them. Maybe in their case, they were doing some repairs and remodeling. That's what it appears here, right, Adam?
That's what it sounds like.
So I think I would have probably, and again, I'm having to just kind of wing this and not have maybe 20, 30 minutes to think about creatively what I could do, but that's the real answer. What could I have done compelling to get my butt over there, to get me physically over in front of them without calling the appointment? And I think I probably would have printed out, there's so much information on, if you're doing repairs and remodeling, doing anything to your home, here are the things that get you the biggest ROI. Okay, that stuff's all over. Doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I think I would have gone over, said, hey, I was in the neighborhood, I was over doing this, and I took the liberty of printing this out to you because I know you're doing the whatever, gone to the door, knocked on the door, and given them that, along with probably my personal brochure. If you know that I teach, you know, that everybody should have a personal brochure, something that talks about them personally, so that prior to a listing, in a situation like this, you put that in the hands of the seller, and you say in the brochure, this is to help get to know me personally before we meet professionally. So I would have also dropped that off as well to say, I know, because you would have presumed, I know we're going to be meeting when you get your home all fixed up and perfect. I thought I'd print this out and do this, give you all these tips on how to do it better, number one. And number two, I thought you might like to learn a little about me personally before we meet professionally, and drop that over. That probably would have given you the opportunity, a good chance to get in the door. At least it would have given you a chance to bond with them and get to know them there at the door, and maybe make them feel a little guiltier before they list with someone else. And Adam, I know I'm going long on this, but I have.
No, that's okay. Well, I was just going to say that what actually kind of makes sense here is that it's about building that relationship with them, right? Because the tale of the story here is that while they're saying you can't come in because we're doing projects,
they're talking
with other agents
who have been
right.
in their home.
So exactly. How do you differentiate yourself so you're the one having that conversation?
And then the last thing, and this is really the biggie to me, is to make sure, even if you have to do it on the phone, as I said before, home sellers say they want a realtor to sell their home. That's what they say, but that's not what they really mean. That is not what they mean. What they really want, and what they know inside, but often don't vocalize, is that they want to choose the realtor who, like in the movie Jerry Maguire, is going to show them the money. Which realtor has the highest likelihood of getting my home sold quickly, and even more importantly, getting me $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 more. And trust me, with the right kind of marketing, realtors can. There is always a range of value, and some realtors who market homes more correctly, and I'm such a believer in my pre-marketing, doing what Apple does, doing what Tesla does, a whole pre-marketing, 22-step pre-marketing regimen to get buyers in a frenzy. Well, I would have talked to the seller. So what else might I have done differently? I know I would have done this. Since I was unable to get over right away, I would have realized the risk. There's always that time is not on my side risk. And so I would have then just made a point of talking to sellers over the phone about the strategies I have and educating them, not selling, educating them on how there are different ways to market homes. And the one thing you want to be sure and not do is list with a real estate agent who markets homes the normal way. What's the normal way? List the home, put up a sign, put it in MLS, run some print ads, run some online ads, hold some open houses, and hope it sells. And I don't say that derogatorily. That is just the normal routine. So you would want to be sure and say to them over the phone, because they're not letting you in right then, that please, 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 I just want to caution you, I have a formula, a way to sell homes that is 100x better than the 75-year-old process. It is, you will see it logically and transparently when I show it to you, that it dramatically increases the probability your home will sell at a higher price. And that's what, on the phone, and say, so all I'm going to ask you is, you're going to have other realtors who are going to want to come over, want to talk to you about listing your home. You do whatever, but do yourself a favor. Don't do me as big a favor as you're going to do yourself. Do yourself a favor. Do not list with anyone. Don't even think about it until you let me come over and show you the process I have that is totally different than any other agent to sell your home at a higher price, and I can. And
yeah,
Adam, that's what I would have done. And so that they have this fear,
right,
that if they don't talk with me, they're leaving $5,000, $10,000, $15,000.
Right. As a homeowner, my thought is, what do I have to lose? I'll let this chump come into my home for 15 minutes and sell me his crap. But really, it could be very transformational in changing their perspective.
Yeah, and to follow up with that, even sometimes the big risk we have is losing a listing to someone they know, a friend, a relative, whatever. And my formula for solving that is to, on the phone, if somebody says, well, no, Greg, maybe an expired, maybe by owner, if I do list, I have a friend. Even if I do list, I have a friend, I have a relative, Aunt Minnie's in the business, etc. Then to say, well, guess what? I have a solution to that. I have a way that I can go ahead and market your home and do all the things I do, which you will see are truly, truly light years ahead of what other people are doing, including, with all due respect, your friend. And at the same time, enable your friend to work on selling your home and earn the entire commission if they do. And you might ask, well, how do you do that?
Smart.
Well, what I do, because rather than try to talk somebody out of, their friend making money, here's the thing there with the friend. And again, this is a long answer to this question, Dina, but it relates to the same kind of theory, is that the first step is for the person to be interested enough that you've got something so different and so unique that they just have to talk with you. So that's the first thing. You just got to, and that's not that hard, because, well, if you watch my videos and my stuff, this process is just the reason it's been featured in Forbes and Yahoo Finance and U.S. News and World Report and all these things is because it is so much better than the normal traditional home selling process that's been around 75 years. So you have that. Or your own, develop your own. Doesn't have to be mine, develop your own. That's totally cool. But have something that is totally, transparently, and logically, if just laid out and explained, not sold, just explained, that is such a better regimen, process for selling a person's home, that they have to look down at it and say, wow. Well, you convey that over the phone. So that's the first step in order to get the appointment. Then when you're over on the appointment, you obviously lay that out. So they realize that with you, they're not just getting you as a person. They're getting a Lexus, where every other real estate agent has a Ford. Their process for selling your home is a Ford. They're all just trying to shine it up and make it a shinier Ford, where you have the Lexus. And even if your Lexus was dirty, it would be like better than the Ford. And nothing wrong with a Ford. It's just generally a Highline Lexus or a Mercedes is better than a Ford and twice the price. And yet they're getting it for the same price. If they see that, now we come into the friend and relative objection. You say, look, here's the deal. I realize it could be you want to list with me. I realize you see that by listing with me, the odds are dramatically higher. You'll end up with thousands more for your home. And your friend would, a relative, if they're really your friend, if they really care about you, they would want you to do what's best for them. But You don't want to make them mad. You don't want to hurt their feelings. So here's what I'll do. I'll agree to give my entire 6% commission to them, presuming you're charging 6%. I'll agree to give my entire 6% commission to your friend or relative if they end up finding a buyer and selling your home. And by the way, they can hold it open whenever they want. So I'll be the listing agent because I have to run my process. And if some other realtor sells it because I will have generated that realtor, then, they'll make 3 and I'll make my typical 3. But with respect to your friend or your relative, whomever it is, if they really want to go out and market your home, I'll give them permission to market it. I can do that in writing as long as you agree. And if they end up finding a buyer for your home, they can have the whole 6%. That way you can go to them and assuage them and tell them that you cared enough about them to give them that opportunity. And I have found time after time that has enabled me to list homes when they otherwise would have listed with friends or relatives. Not always. That's one of the toughest things to overcome, but maybe half the time. And half the time over years is a lot of money.
Okay.
So, okay.
Awesome. Perfect question. Perfect
Thank you,
answer.
Dean.
We got 25 minutes. So we got a ton of questions.
All right. 25.
So you got
25 to go?
25 minutes left.
Oh my gosh. 35 minutes?
It's been 35 minutes, and we've probably got 20 questions. So we've got to do rapid fire.
So this is rapid
fire.
Gosh,
Okay.
Adam,
Here we go.
What I can do.
I'm going to force you to do it. Here we go, guys.
Here we go.
Okay, Amy Starr hit us back, and she clarified exactly what it is she was looking to ask. And what her question is how to decide if an agent is a top quality agent and will do a great job for a referred client outside of your area. So it's sort of like, how do you refer somebody to a good agent that you don't really have the ability to know?
Okay, quick answer to the question. Number one, I'm going to presume this is a seller referral, but I'll answer both. If it's a buyer referral, then number one, I would definitely refer to somebody who focuses on working buyers. I would have been a very bad referral. So basically I would network, make calls into that area to see who it is that really focuses on working buyers, because people who spend their time working buyers as opposed to working on selling their listings become more knowledgeable about the area. They look at a lot of homes. I rarely even looked at other homes when I was selling real estate all those years because I didn't care. I wasn't going to show those homes. I was simply going to work on getting my home sold. So that's the buyer side. I would just network through that area, ask various brokers, etc., ask around and try to find who works buyers. And those are typically not the people that have all the signs and have all the big ads. If it's a seller side, then, and you really care then the analysis that I would do, and you can do this statistically, is I would look at the people who are selling homes closest to original list price. These are what I call the promise keepers. These are the agents that may not have the most listings, but these are the agents who are delivering most closely on what they and the seller agreed as a list price. Now, I understand that a lot of times you would take listings that are overpriced and you have actually told the home, because I recommend that. I do not believe you should leave listings on the table unless you're honest with a home seller about what this is worth, what you believe the right range of value is, that your job is to sell it at the high end of that range, and they still won't even price it more aggressively than you think. That's okay, that's cool. Quality of a listing has to do with the motivation of the seller, and also it's their home. They made the payments. They have the right to try it if they want to try it. And once in a while I've been wrong. But to answer your question, I would look for those agents who really work on getting their listings sold at the highest price rather than just collecting listings. Because quite frankly, I know there are a lot of agents out there who say what they need to say to get listings, and then they move on the next day to get the next one. And I do not believe those are the people that I'd want to refer my friend, my relative, or my client to. Okay.
Perfect. Very good. Got one from Michelle Miller, and she says,
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. How do you recommend getting started farming? How did you work your farm?
Okay.
Pretty big question.
Great question. All right. Number one thing, you must have a compelling message. Number two thing, you must have a compelling message. Number three thing, you must have a compelling message. Now, what I mean by that is that, let's take your business cards, for example. I'll bet that on your business card, it's an attractive business card, and you may have your photo and it has your information on it, etc. But does it have a compelling message? Does it have something on it that I would look at your business card and I would make a mental note, Michelle, that even if I weren't thinking about selling my home at this point, I would look at that and I would say, boy, I've got to keep that card, because when the time comes for me to sell, I've got to get back in touch with Michelle. Now, this is critical for farming because you're going to use it across the board. And the very first step to effective farming is to have that compelling message that people in your farm will look at it, most of whom are not thinking about selling at this particular moment, but they'll make a mental note and they'll say to themselves, wow, this person stands apart. One of my favorite messages, for example, was, ask me how I can sell your home for more than it's worth. Ask me how I can sell your home for more than it's worth. And that was on the back of my cards. That was one of the many compelling messages I used. So the front of my card would be me and my, my gorgeous photo, my photo, my information. And the back, it would just be, ask me how I can sell your home for more than it's worth. So that would be my messaging into my farmers, my messaging on my card, and then everywhere on my LinkedIn profile, wherever it is, if that's the message I decide on, because we all know sellers want the highest possible price. So that's number one. Number two, farming should not be about asking people to list with you either directly or indirectly. That is old school farming. Farming, which I think is fantastic, all farming is getting your message into a certain market area where the homes are geographically contiguous. That's it. That's all farming is. My favorite farming technique, the one that moved my needle the most, Michelle, was I would decide on the area, let's say it's 500 homes, and I developed a publication. And the publication was what I'm going to call a city events publication that I just did myself, a couple, 3 pages. So every month I would go into my farm area and I would hand this out door to door. And when people weren't home, I would leave it. And 95% of it, no big ads, nothing, was just all of the cool things that were happening in Phoenix the next month. And this was in South Scottsdale, where I started farming 30 some years ago. There are about 500-600 homes in South Scottsdale that I started this with. And I just handed this out as like a community service thing. And it was really cool because I would check out what new movies were opening the next month, what plays were coming into town the next month, were the Blue Angels coming to the airport the next month, all the cool things would be happening. And it was all right there summarized. Well, then on the back, at the bottom, very subtly, I would just mention in there that, hey, if you're ever thinking about selling your home, ask me how I can sell your home for more than it's worth. Talk to me first. Rather than call me, talk to me first. And then my phone number. And that was just very small at the bottom. People saw it. I didn't have to put it in their face. I made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars just using that and just farming once a month into that neighborhood. That's it. I mean, that's how I would get started. Compelling message. And then rather than going out and, oh, I'm an amazing realtor, please list with me, or anything like that. Just do something that'll be a benefit. Share benefit. Share something that people will say, wow, and like you just because of what you're doing. And the other thing I'll mention that I did that was incredibly powerful after that is I developed a kids publication. And I did that. I was doing this with thousands of homes where I actually featured various kids with parents' permission, what they were doing at school and sports and successes. And it was all built around that. And then eventually I got some of the children in these various neighborhoods to be editors and writers and reporters at school. And that thing just went crazy. And I mean, I made, I think over $1 million in commissions over the years just by that particular publication as well. So that is my view of effective farming.
Perfect. Okay, so one question I'm going to cover here really quick. Larry Rubino wrote us back and he says, is this Q&A recorded and will it be posted somewhere? Larry, yes, it's going to be on YouTube. So on Greg's YouTube channel, it will absolutely be there. And I'll put a link to that in the showcase. There's a little button on the left-hand side that's 3 little gold cards. Click on that icon and I'll put a link to that there in just a minute.
And that's right after this is done, that will be available, right?
Yeah, it has to process for several minutes, but then it goes live right on your channel so people can tune in. And for everybody else out there listening, I can still see we got a ton of listeners on here that weren't here in the beginning perhaps. If you can't answer questions here on this platform, send us your questions to help@realestatemaverics.com. That's help@realestatemaverics.com. And even if you ask those questions when this live recording is done, send them in and we'll add them to our queue for next week's Q&A. So your questions get answered, they're recorded, and you can refer back to them.
No, better than that. I don't want people to have to wait a week. So
send them out?
No, what I'll do is, if you have any questions, just go ahead and shoot them in and then download Voxer. V-O-X-E-R. That's V as in Victor, O-X-E-R. So download Voxer to your phone. It's free. I'm on Voxer. It's like a phone-to-phone walkie-talkie, and then just connect with me. Say, hey, okay, this is Michelle, and I'm on Voxer, and I'm G Hague 282. It's Greg Hague, but my exact Voxer is G Hague 282. And connect with me. I'll answer every one of your questions verbally, quickly on Voxer, just like I'm doing now. I'll shoot you, and you can just listen to it whenever you want. And by the way, you can listen to it in 2x or 3x and do it fast. So no, anybody that has a question that we don't get that done today, you get on Voxer, ask me, just shoot that question to me on Voxer, and my pleasure to answer it back. So you don't have to wait a week.
Very good. Okay, so.
And by the way, I guess we'll be doing this next Thursday as well.
Every week? Yeah.
Every week this time. So come back in anytime.
Okay. So we got another question that's highly popular. Everyone's voting for it. It says, it's from Yolanda, and it says, in your videos and blogs, you are critical of the MLS, but isn't that the best tool we have to sell homes? And we've got 15 minutes left.
15 minutes. Well, I am critical of the MLS, and I'm critical of the MLS because, first of all, I have the right to be critical. And the reason that we all have the right to be critical, but I think I have a real right to be critical because my dad was one of the founders of the MLS. I used to work with my dad when I was, I think, 9, 10 years old, cranking out on mimeograph machines, info sheets for a company that he formed in Cincinnati called the Cincinnati Property Exchange. And this was, back then there was no such thing as MLS. And so every broker could only sell their own listings. Every broker could only sell their own listings. And that was really tough on small brokers, very tough on small brokers, like my dad's firm when he got started. Because if a buyer came to you and you only had 23 listings and they didn't like any of them, you were toast. And so the big firms that had 200 and 300 and 400 listings had a huge advantage in attracting buyers and, quite frankly, in attracting agents to them as well, because the agents there had a lot more homes to sell. So Dad put together 53 small brokers in Cincinnati in this little company. When he was a real estate broker, he was one of the 53, called the Cincinnati Property Exchange. And I would drive around with him on Saturdays, and we would distribute information on everybody's listings to everybody, and everybody agreed to co-broke. And eventually that was one of 2 small firms like that in the country that were made into the MLS. So I have a history that I'm very proud of, that goes back to the early days of founding what we view today as today's MLS. Now, why am I critical? I'm critical because the multiple listing service was formed for the purpose of facilitating the sale of homes. First and foremost goal is not for us to have a better system for making commissions. That would be a second goal. The first goal, our first goal always should not be us, should not be our company, should not be our income, should not be our commission checks. It should be our home sellers. That should be our first goal. And the multiple listing service, even though at the time, Dad designed it, my father designed it to help him and other brokers survive, the real purpose of the MLS is to help home sellers open the market for their homes. So that being said, it worked very effectively that way for years, but look at some of the things that have happened. Number one, the multiple listing service, Yolanda, does what? It tracks days on the market. We know that a home that's on the market 3 days versus 300 days is going to sell for more, even if it's totally 300 days on the market and priced right, maybe just never been shown, maybe there wasn't the right buyer, who knows? But the bottom line is MLS has no right. They should not be exposing days on the market to home buyers. Home buyers don't pay for the MLS. Sellers write a check. The checks for commission checks. Those commission checks are what we use to fund the MLS. The MLS wouldn't survive without home sellers. We wouldn't survive without home sellers. So why are we tilting the playing field in MLS towards home buyers? Number 2 thing, it shows history of price reductions. MLS should not show history of price reductions. It should show whatever the price is at the given time, so that someone who represents a buyer, if a home is priced at a certain amount now because it was priced too high a price a while ago, that tracking of that being reduced should not be exposed to buyers. It's not fair. It hurts the price because buyers see blood in the water. They see this history of price reductions, and it causes them mentally to be likely to offer less. You know that. So there are so many things like that with the MLS, where the MLS that is designed to service home sellers actually hurts home sellers in so many ways. So it's not that I'm against it. What I'm against are some of the things that the MLS does that I believe are not fair to home sellers, the people who write the check. That's number 1. And number 2, I believe that we should use MLS. I don't suggest we don't use it. I suggest we use it strategically. Instead of just listing a home, Yolanda, and throwing it right in MLS, I suggest that we do what Apple does, what Tesla does. We list a home and we don't right away put it in MLS. We don't right away put up a for sale sign. We try to build some excitement. I have 22 different ways to do that. If you've studied my training, I have 22 different ways to build excitement, build anticipation, get buyers in a higher price frame of mind, and do that for some period of days. I run my process over 29 days before we put it in MLS. If it doesn't sell during that time, fine, put it in MLS. And there's one of the real value to doing that, because MLS tracks price reductions and tracks days on the market, is it allows the seller to see while you're running this and showing the home and getting other agents over and doing this pre-marketing. It allows the home sellers to see at the end of that process, and in my case it's 29 days, to see that their home well may be overpriced and not to make a mistake and put it in MLS overpriced. Okay.
Perfect. I think that's perfect. Okay, got another question from Ani. Any techniques when it comes down to appraisals to appraise? We are seeing some value issues with loan buyers due to the acceleration of the home prices in the moderate price ranges. If we are helping them net up 8% more, how do we get past this?
Okay, so this is a great question, Ani. God, I love you guys, by the way. You guys are so cool. I mean, just some of my absolute best coaching clients. You'd always say such nice things, ask good questions. So thank you. It's just a pleasure to have you in my world. Well, the appraisal thing. So let me share a few observations. Number one is that we know that all homes could sell within a range of value. There's no home is worth $299,444 versus $301,002. I mean, within some range, every home can be sold at the upper or lower end of that range. For some homes, that range will be larger if they're more custom homes in a more custom area like Paradise Valley, Arizona, where homes are in the millions and they're just totally different. And then in other communities, that range might be quite small if homes, like it's a subdivision and homes are very much the same. That being said, every home is different. Even if the home itself is identical to the one next door, it's still next door, which means the lot's different. So every home is different. So that being said, we market, and I market, that I'm the realtor who can sell your home for more than it's worth. So what's a home worth? It's worth what the other guys would sell it for. I've got a process that dramatically increases the probability it'll sell for more, 3%, 5%, 8% more. So your question is, okay, so let's presume we run our process. Let's presume we do what Apple does. And there's the strategies they have to get people standing in line and to get people to pay more for an iPhone than they normally would. And we really do snag a sale. And because we know we're in a hot market right now in many parts of the country, that is an appraisal problem. How do we solve that? Well, first way we solve that, and I know this almost elementary, is going back 30 years. I always met the appraisers out on when they were doing the appraisal. I would offer to, obviously everybody, you bring the comps, but I would make it a point to take their, if back in the old days when they're using normal tape measures and whatever, and they didn't have electronic or whatever it is, I would carry things. I would stretch the tape measure. I would get down on my hands and knees and help them do this and hold this there. And I was always say, I'm just here to help you. I just want to make this easier for you. Bottom line is, your appraisers are people and you want them to like you. And if they like you and they don't feel you're there just trying to, I got all these 19,000 reasons why this home should appraise this amount. I just wanted them to like me and want to try to bring the appraisal in at the right amount. And also, sometimes appraisers going out don't know what the sale price is. Well, I always made sure they did. In today's world, that's not always disclosed to them by the lender. And so the appraisers may not know. And I wanted to make darn sure they knew what the appraisal price was. The third thing I always did was ask the appraiser as a courtesy. I'd say, would you mind if you do, looking at the comps and looking at other homes, if you are having a problem appraising this home at the sale price, would you mind just letting me know before you turn the appraisal in case there's anything else I could share in the way of a recent sale or this or that or something I know about? Just give me a heads up. I'd sure appreciate that as a courtesy. So that being said, it's a different world today, Ani, than it was over many of the years I sold, when I always took my appraisal friends bottles of wine and gifts and different things. Every time I went out, I always had something to give them. Today, I would still do that, but I would keep the price range of what I gave much lower. Like my book, I would give them a copy of a book, my book, How Fathers Changed Lives, or just a book, something that they would look at as not being too expensive, but again, to create an obligation of reciprocity. And I think the last thing I'll say about that is check out Cialdini's, Cialdinis. Go online. Cialdini's 6 laws of persuasion, how to persuade people. And one of them, for example, is reciprocity, and that people feel an obligation to reciprocate if you do certain things. Well, those have been around forever, but boy, even with an appraisal thing, you can look at how you can creatively do those in a way that will make the appraiser want to bring the appraisal in for you. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that was good. I like it. Okay, so we've got 2 questions. We got 5 minutes left. This is from Yolanda. She asked her question earlier. If you're
part of the company, you got to say you like it.
Oh, well, I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta say that.
You know me, Greg. I don't lie to you. I tell you how it is. So
Yeah,
I'm not
we're
going
on the air, so you might lie.
Nah,
I mean, say, Greg, that just
I don't think I will.
Hey.
I don't. That was a really bad answer to a really good question.
A really bad answer to a really good question.
Right.
Right. Well, I'll try harder next week.
Yeah, please do.
Right.
Okay, so here's from Yolanda real quick. If you had to name the single most important thing agents should do that they don't, what would it be? That's a pretty open-ended question.
Yeah, that is, but let me think for 10 seconds. The single biggest thing. Well, I believe I'm gonna have to say two, but maybe I can put it into one. The single biggest thing would be to have a process that breaks the traditional process for selling homes. It's been around forever. There are 100 better ways. I know that the way I developed, I believe in deeply, my 22-step home launch formula. But there are so many variations one could do on that. And I sincerely believe that as much as I believe in what I developed in the way of that process, that a few years from now, a few months from now, it'll be better. I'll continue to make it better. I view it as right now it's an iPhone, and it's a really good one, but my process will get better and better as iPhones get better and better. So you need a process. You need to not go in on listing appointments and just be selling the fact that you'll work harder, that you'll run more ads, that you have a bigger company, that your company gets more referrals in from around the world, which you know is just garbage. You know, that because you're with this great big company, you get all these referrals that this is so likely these people's homes will sell to somebody out. Yeah, it's all just, that's just garbage. You know that the odds of that happening are remote. So instead of the gimmicks, instead of saying the same old things that every other agent is saying, they're taking that forward and shining it up. I would have a unique process that I take over to the sellers, and that I believe in it so deeply, I'm so passionate about it that they can see it. That's number one. Number two, that it's logically transparent. Those are big words, Yolanda. You're logically transparent, that when they see my process and compare it to what every other agent who they might interview or have interviewed would do, that they see it's clearly better. So that's number one. Number two, agents don't go on enough dances. I believe that every agent who focuses on listings, and I believe listings are the name of the game. It's the way to build a business. And that's why I've been a listing agent all my life. How do you build a scalable business without inventory? How do you actually build a business that sets you free without inventory? Well, the problem is to get those listings competing against agents, oftentimes who have bigger names than you do, who have the listings, who have the dominance, who have the signs, who have the ads out there. How do you beat them? Well, you have a process so that people elect your process over other agents' big names. And you also point out that, and this is important, those who sell more homes don't necessarily sell homes for more. Those who sell more homes don't necessarily sell homes for more. And I always did analysis when I was not a big name agent. I did an analysis on the big name agents and what their list price to sale price ratios were, et cetera. So the bottom line is you want to getting to the point, you want to have a process. And then you, number two, want to have a compelling message. Remember, I mentioned that with respect to, I think we were talking about a farming thing. You can't farm, you can't market, you can't do anything. And my 4 pillars of marketing course talks about number one foundation is you got to have a compelling message. Like, ask me how I sell homes for more than they're worth. And then I would explain how I do that, how other agents use this normal process, and that my process dramatically increases the likelihood your home will sell for more. And let me show it to you and let me see if you don't agree. So 2 things. Number one, I would have an absolute unbelievable process that sellers could see was a better process that broke the traditional routine. And number 2, attached to that, Yolanda, appended to that, I would have a compelling message. So that when people responded to my compelling message, what they were really asking me to do was to explain my process.
Good. That's perfect. I love it. Okay, last question we have here is from Melissa. And she says, "Good morning!" exclamation point. So she's excited.
Hi, Melissa. Well, if you know me, Melissa, I'm always excited.
I really
am. Even when I'm off air, am I like totally excited?
My analogy for Greg, everybody, is he is a lit stick of dynamite on a leash. It's a joke. Trying to tell him to behave is a joke.
Oh yeah. And Adam is the COO, runs the company, and I am like what do we have, like 12 people? 12 people at Mavericks, 12 people at Real Estate Mavericks, and I am the total bad boy. I mean, he's always breaking the rules. You're always having to slap me in the line.
We love it though. Okay, so here's Melissa's question. I have a seller who won't accept an offer that they should be accepting.
Oh, okay.
I'm meeting with him again today. Do you have any specific tips for me?
Yeah, I do. Meeting today?
Today.
Oh, awesome. I'm so glad you're on. And who is this?
Melissa.
Melissa. Okay, Melissa. Great question. So that is a challenge. It's always a challenge because you have an offer and we're going to say now this is one you really believe the home sellers should accept. So how do you convince them to do that? Obviously, if you believe that the home seller should counter, and normally on a first offer, I believe a home seller should counter offer. Why not try? There'll be exceptions to that where that might create a high likelihood we'd lose the buyer, but in most cases, you can try a counter offer. Why not? And if they turn it down, you can always come back and make it work. But let's say wherever you are, you're at a point where you really have the contract that you know they should reach down and sign because there's no more room. And if they don't, they're going to regret it. You really believe they're going to regret it down the road. As they track more days on the market, maybe they have to reduce their price. Who knows? They're going to end up with a lower price. So how do you persuade them to do that? The best technique, strategy for persuading sellers to take an offer that I've ever found and used was this. I would get the sellers into the buyer's frame of mind, into a buyer's frame of mind. And here's how I did that. So I would say to the sellers, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and we have this contract now sitting in front of them. I say, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, right now you may think you're a seller when you're evaluating whether to sign this contract, but you're actually not. And they would always look at me kind of weird. What do you mean I'm actually not? And I would say, well, you're really not. Think about it this way. We know these are good buyers. We know it's highly likely that if we accept this contract, and I always would say that if we accept this contract, that this transaction will close. So the point is, your home is sold. Let's say this contract here is for $375,000. Your home is sold right now at $375,000. All you have to do is reach down and sign it. So it's sold. So here's the thing. You're really not a seller, you're a buyer. Because if you don't sign this contract, you've just bought your home back. You've just bought your home for $375,000. And here's what I want you to think. I want you to think this. If you had $375,000 in your pocket, and remember, this is no longer emotional. This is purely money. You've decided to sell your home. You're moving on to another place. So it's only about the money. So you have $375,000 in your pocket right now. If you reach down and sign this, just going to close in 30 days. You know your home's been on the market, and Melinda, whatever it's been, for X amount of time. You know that this contract I've already shown you is right at the high end of the range. So here's the thing. If you had $375,000 in your pocket and you were looking for the best investment in the world, that is, where could I best invest $375,000? Of all the homes for sale, of all the stocks that you could buy, of all the commercial property, of everything you could do with $375,000, would you spend $375,000 today on this home on the bet that in the next few weeks you could sell it for more? And they almost always looked at me and said, well, probably not. And I would say, of course not. Of course not. You know you could find a better buy for $375,000. We're selling this at the high end of the comps. Reach down. Don't buy this home back. Make it go away. I promise you, you'll sleep better tonight by doing it. And by the way, Melinda, they always did. They would always the next day, if I called them, we talked, they were so glad their home was sold. They were so glad they did it. They could mentally move on. And I would tell them that too. You will look back tomorrow and you'll be glad you did. Don't look back in 30 days and wish you could have it back when the buyers have already bought something else.
That's good.
Well, it's true. And it worked because it's true.
Right.
Everything, and this is important before we end, and I know we're getting to the hour.
Couple minutes. Okay.
I don't believe in gimmicks. I don't believe in that. I believe that everything that you do in listing a home and in selling a home is about better processes and about getting people in the right frame of mind. All that happens here with a home seller is you know they're making a mistake, and you want to show them that they are. So rather than all this like you should do this and this and that, I mean, get them so they can graphically see that they're making a mistake. And it's the same with people who would consider listing with other agents. They've got to graphically, transparently, and logically see that if they don't list with you, it's truly likely to cost them money. Yeah. That's it. Convince them of that, and you'll list every home. That's it. Every time.
I love it. Yeah. Well, that's all we got. That's all the questions.
Okay, well.
Closing remarks?
Closing remarks. So closing remarks are, number one, you should subscribe to my YouTube channel. you should subscribe to my YouTube channel because every week I put out a YouTube that's, well, pretty mavericky. Gives you a different way to look at real estate. That's number one. Number two, hey, connect with me on Voxer, VOXER, and shoot me your questions. Hey, even if you're not paying me, I'll answer your questions. It's totally good. I'm about giving back. Real estate has been great to me. I want to help you. And so my email is greg@realestatemaverics.com. Connect with me on Voxer, VOXER. I know, Adam, but I can't help it. I mean, the bottom line is, hey, real estate has been good to me, and
you're right.
I love what I do, and I've got a big team, all you guys who help me. So greg@realestatemaverics.com, connect with me on Voxer, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I won't give my cell phone number out.
If you give your cell phone number out, you guys are just gonna see my hand come over and just pull them right back.
And if by chance you happen to be interested in some, well, mavericky coaching, ask yourself, is there a maverick in me? Then go on over to realestatemaverics.com, where we're writing a creative playbook on how you can win in real estate. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.